Good afternoon, everyone. If you are here for the ADOT 5310 Compliance Overview presentation, then you are in the right spot. So I see a couple of you on video, so thank you. Glad to see your faces. Not required. So I'll look to see if we have any of our leaders from ADOT here. I just see Luke. And I see Jesse. So I guess before I get started, then I'll invite ADOT. Jesse, do you have any opening remarks before we get started?
No. Good afternoon, everyone. No, thanks for joining us. And we will be recording the session, as Tyler will probably mention. So if for some reason, you need to jump out early or something occurs, we'll have the recording available to you. But no, thank you for joining us today.
All right, thank you, Jesse. Yes, so I will go ahead and get started. After we're done today, I will be making this available to everyone that's attending. I believe I'll be sending this to ADOT, and they will disseminate the presentation slides after we're done today. So if you feel like you missed anything, don't fret. We will get these slides out to you as well, so you won't have to write everything down that you see. So then we can go ahead and get started. So just give a quick introduction for myself. I'm Tyler Bender. I am an associate with RLS and Associates. We are the transit consulting firm that is contracted with ADOT to provide these reviews on behalf of ADOT. We are a consulting firm that solely focuses on the transit industry. We've been in business for about 37 years now, and we bring a wealth of knowledge of transit systems from both the smallest agencies providing just a couple of vehicles with service to the largest agencies, to the MTA in New York. So we've seen the whole gamut from smallest to largest actually in the country. So we have a lot of technical knowledge, and we would love to impart that to you as part of this review process. Myself, just to give an introduction for myself as well, I've been an RLS for 3 years now, doing these sorts of compliance reviews for 5310, 5311 agencies for various states across the country. And we also provide compliance oversight work for the FTA itself. So, the larger system reviews for agencies such as Valley Metro and Phoenix, ADOT, who receives their reviews from FTA. We help provide those reviews as well. So we got that kind of perspective from the state side of things and from the federal side of things. So please feel free to always ask us questions if you have questions throughout this process. So as I said, and as you can see on this slide, we're going to go over the compliance review process. What does it look like? What you should expect from this process for your 5310 program. That's what we're going to be focusing on, just the 5310 program as part of this compliance overview process. So this is what our content's going to look like today. We'll go through these introductions. I kind of got that done. What are the objectives of this entire review process from ADOT's perspective? What is the compliance review process going to look like, broken down into each stage? How to best prepare for the review. So that's on your end. How do you best prepare for getting all documents together that we need, any other data or information that we are requesting? How is it best done to prepare for the review, including the on-site visit? So what is it going to look like when the site visit occurs? What information will you need to provide? What sort of things can you expect? And then how best to have a successful review. We'll try and give you a little pointers that we've seen in our years of doing these tour reviews. You can best prepare for this review, and then how to have the most successful review that you can have. So introduction for the review. Our review staff will be on site for your review. One of us will be on site. These reviews are scheduled to have two people as take part of the review. So one of us will be on site, the other will be participating virtually. That other person will be taking notes, asking a few questions as well. So it's really going to be at least one of us from RLS on site, possibly one or more of your ADOT representatives will also be on site as well, but you should expect at least one, possibly two of us on site as part of your compliance site visit. One quick note as part of that, it will be critical for us to have some sort of internet access. If you have any conference rooms available, we can like maybe project onto a TV screen that would allow that other individual to participate virtually, both either from ADA and our RLS second reviewer to participate, and then you can see them on the screen while we're conducting the review. That would be ideal. But if you don't have that, don't worry about that either. The minimum of what we'll need is at least some internet access to conduct that review, so we can allow those people from ADOT, if they're participating virtually, to also take part. Your review team. This is what your review team is going to look like. Not all 8 of them at once, but one of your reviewers will be one of these 8 reviewers. This is our RLS staff. Most likely you'll see one of the top 4 names who have been working with ADOT in the past and who will be conducting these reviews as part of the 5310 compliance oversight process. I already gave my introduction. I'm not going to go through everyone's introduction, but just these are the names that you should be familiar with when you receive an invitation for certain meetings or any emails from these individuals. Don't fret, these are that's not spam. That is some from your reviewer that's going to be providing this information. Oh. One moment, I think there's someone still waiting to get in. All right, sorry about that. So all the individuals that are just joined, we are just going through, I'm just starting the introduction process, just to let you know what's going on. You'll receive the slides after this, so don't feel like you just missed anything. We really just went through the introduction for everything right now. So look for that email in the future for all the slides, but really haven't missed much yet. All right, so your reviewers will be assigned when everything gets figured out with the scheduling, which I believe ADOT's already been working with a number of you to get things on the calendar for your in-person site visit. And if not, then it's, I think, in that process right now. We're in that beginning stage. This team that we have put together, we have over 100 years of experience combined with all of our experience working in rural transit and 5310 transportation programs. So we try and bring that knowledge to help you out as much as possible. We've seen a lot of different situations. So if you have a question that maybe in a particular area that you would be curious how other agencies handle this, always feel free to ask that before, during, or after your site visit. We want to provide that technical assistance to you as much as possible. And I've already said we conduct reviews for FTA and for various states, 11 other states across the country right now. So we see a lot of different things being done from different corners of the country. Always feel free to ask us if you have any questions on what's being done on the other side of the continent. All right, so then that covers our introduction. What are the objectives now of this review process? From ADOT's perspective, this is something that they are required to do from the FTA regulations, from the regulations codified in 5310 and the circulars that was actually just recently updated. So if you're not aware, the 5310 circular was just recently updated from FTA about a couple weeks ago. So go take a look at that if you're curious. But that is a requirement from both of those regulatory perspectives that ADOT is required to make sure that their subrecipients are complying with all federal requirements on a periodic basis. So ADOT has elected to do site visits as part of their oversight compliance process, as a number of states elect to do that as part of their compliance oversight process. It's seen as the best practice just to make sure that you get some face time with ADOT will go out on site and you can ask questions to your representatives to make sure you're doing everything correctly. So that's why we're going through this process. It's something that ADOT is actually required to do from the FTA perspective. And if they didn't, that would be something they would be very concerned, the FTA would be very concerned with as part of their own state management review of ADOT. And as I've said before, we are looking to provide technical assistance. Do not think of this as an audit. We are not trying to come down on you. This is not meant to be any sort of gotcha moment. We're not trying to find errors or any inefficiencies in your program. We're trying to help you out as much as possible and fill in any gaps in compliance as required to make sure that you're meeting all your federal requirements in addition to what you are already doing, providing a great transportation service to your communities. All right, so what does this process look like? We are in the end stage of stage 1, I believe. The agencies that have been notified, a few of you, I believe, have already received your notifications for the reviews that you'll be receiving in the near future. I think some of them are in November and December. So that's the first step, is just negotiating these dates, make sure it works best for you, ADOT, and us as the reviewers, so we can be there on site and it works out for everyone. You'll get an email then that also includes what we call an agenda package that includes the field guide that we'll be asking you to complete. It's a brief questionnaire that we'll ask you to complete, but I'll get to that in a moment. It'll include also just the logistical things, what topics will be covered when throughout the day, any other additional questions that the reviewer may have that haven't been asked already. Predominantly those 3 things. The thing that I think that will assist the most is that agenda package will include a schedule and that breaks down those topical areas. That will be important for you to identify who needs to be in the room at what time. So typically we start off with program management and financial management. So if you can identify what individuals in your agency is responsible for the finance side of things, that will allow you to say, okay, please make sure that staff or those staff members are available for those discussions in that time frame. So they don't need to be there the whole day, but that will just allow them to make their time available so we can use our time as efficiently as possible. Next, we'll ask you to complete that review questionnaire. So that field guide includes a number of questions broken down by topical area. We'll ask you to just complete that as to the best as you can, and there'll be a slide in a moment, but that agenda package, as I said, will also include some information on how to complete that, and also login credentials for you to provide a documentation to us, to what we call our FTP site. If you're not familiar with that tech lingo, as a file transfer protocol website. It's essentially like Dropbox or Google Drive, something like that, where we ask you to upload these documents to this website that's maintained by us as a company. It's a secure server, so do not be concerned about uploading any documents. This is a secure system. That's why we provide you specific login credentials that are only available to you as the agency. You'll get sent some login credentials as the login credential instructions on how to use the website, what documents should go where, and I'll show that in a moment. First, this is what the field guide is going to look like. This is just an example for financial management. You'll see these questions here, and we'll just ask you to fill in these answers on the right side as best you can. If you don't have a full answer, just let us know. We want to just get as much information as possible before we arrive on site so we can prepare and then maybe answer questions that can be knocked out already and we don't need to follow up on site. Again, helps us out with our efficient use of time while on site. Also in this, you'll see this section called requested review documents. That's what we'll be asking you to upload into the FTP site. So for example, the chart of accounts, we'll be asking you to upload your most recent chart of accounts for the finance side of things. And you'll see some folders that are broken down just like this, each one in a different topical area. So if you could, in that example, upload the chart of accounts document to the financial management section, that helps us keep everything organized and keeps everything structured so we know what documents to locate where throughout the review process. And if you do maybe upload documents here after our document request deadline, always please let us know, send us an email if you do upload any additional documents, because the system that's set up right now, it doesn't like send us a notification that you've uploaded documents. So just let us know if you upload any additional documents after the original document request deadline passes. And step 3, this is where your reviewer will take over. They'll be looking at the documents that you provide, developing some responses and follow-up questions from your responses in the field guide. And that's predominantly what's going to drive the on-site visit. As part of that site visit, they're going to be asking these follow-up questions that weren't able to be fully answered in your field guide response, or maybe the documentation didn't have some required policy element. That's what we'll follow up on. Just make sure, hey, we maybe didn't see this required policy. Do you have that elsewhere in your agency or maybe in a different document? That's where we'll be following up and asking that, and hopefully document or information will exist and you can provide that to us before or during the site visit. Otherwise, we'll just need to have that developed as part of our follow-up. So the site visit, this is, again, just to reiterate, it's just a one-day site visit. Do anticipate that it will likely take most of the day. We usually start around 9 a.m. and then finish around 4 or 5 p.m. With breaks built in between for lunch and getting coffee and things. So as I already said, this is where we're going to be asking those follow-up questions and just getting clarifying information to make sure we have a full, complete assessment of what we see as this snapshot in time for your agency's federal compliance. Site visits begin with what we call an entrance conference. That's where reviewer will be essentially reiterating what I'm saying right now, just so you can hear it again, and so it's fresh in your memory, what the whole process looks like, what it looks like beginning to end, what after the site visit, what's it going to look like when you're going to receive reports and information from ADOT. That's what we call our exit conference. At the end of the site visit, the reviewer is going to put their own notes together and develop a list of what we call our preliminary findings, just based on our desk review and on-site discussion. I say that's preliminary just because nothing is set in stone until you receive your final report, which we have to go through our own sort of review process with ADOT just to make sure everything is reported correctly in that. So that's why it's just preliminary, and you do have some time in between your site visit and the report development to even correct items. So that's why we provide this to you before we leave, so you can even start working on things. Because if you get things checked off, you get us maybe a policy that was missing certain information before you get the report, then we don't even need to include that in the report. So that's just more added, I think, motivation to get everything as closed out as possible if you do have any items that are listed in that preliminary findings document. So as I was just saying, after our site visit then, it becomes the draft report section. This is where we'll be working with ADOT directly. So you won't be involved in this particular part. We will be working with the reviewer. We'll be working with ADOT to develop this draft report, making sure it's organized by topic and all these, provide a description of what we saw and what needs to maybe happen to correct and meet the full requirement from the regulation, whether it be from the FTA or other federal regulations. We'll try and give you those regulatory citations as well, just so you are informed of where that's coming from. Then that will also include a corrective action. What's that going to look like to make sure that your agency is brought into full compliance with that federal regulation? So once we get that draft report, you'll get that within 30 days. You'll then have 2 weeks to review that and comment on the draft report, send any questions that you may have. If maybe the reviewer has mischaracterized something, maybe something wasn't seen that you do actually have in place policy or practice, maybe just something that wasn't there. If or ever the questions that you have, this is your time to ask those questions. Additionally, each one of those corrective actions that for any areas that are requiring a certain action to come into full compliance, that will include a time frame for corrective action. Typically, these are in 30, 60, 90-day timeframes, sometimes up to 120 days, depending on the level of difficulty or level of time involved to close something out. So if, for example, we say that maybe this item can be done from our perspective, our knowledge, within 60 days, but maybe you have internal requirements that mean a certain policy change needs to go to your board for approval, and maybe your board only meets quarterly. So obviously that wouldn't be likely occur within 60 days if your board's not going to meet for another 3 months. So that is the time where we're asking here and your opportunity to say, actually, we can't get that done within 60 days. Can we have 90 days instead to close that out, just so we can get that before our board for approval before the deadline. So throughout this whole process, your reviewer is also available for questions. So always feel free from your site visit up through the final report to send in any emails, any questions to your reviewers, give them a phone call. We're all available as much as possible to answer your questions as well. So once as 2 weeks have passed, you provided your comments and questions. We will take those comments and make any revisions to the report, work with ADOT to get that finalized, and then ADOT will then transmit that final report to you. So after all that is said and done, it's typically you will receive the final report within 45 to 60 days, calendar days, after your site visit. So that's the time frame that you should expect this final report. Again, you have that timeline or time in between your site visit and the final report to even work on any corrective actions. So don't feel like you have to wait for the final report. I always think that's highly recommended, so that makes it easier on you and even looks better in your final report if you get things closed out before the final report's even sent. So that's what the last step is in the process, is completing and submitting those corrective actions. Your representatives from ADOT will be available for questioning here. We usually are available as well if you have any particular questions on corrective action. So this is where that final time frame where you'll be submitting those actions for closeout for the ADOT to get everything back into full compliance with the various federal requirements. And don't feel like if you do have any findings listed on your final report that it's any sort of judgment on your agency's performance. There are so many federal requirements. I don't believe anyone has ever gone through a full review and come out with no findings, or at least it's rare that an agency has that much staff and resources available to maintain all this information. So don't feel like it's going to be any sort of judgment on your agency. It's not a bad thing if you have any issues noted in your final report. So this is what that review process essentially looks like in this sort of swim lane diagram. Feel free to look at this at your leisure. As I kind of explained all this already, but just breaks down those roles in these three areas for ADOT's roles, your agency's roles as the subrecipient in this middle row, and then our roles as the reviewers in this last row. So if you're curious to see who's doing what and who's responsible at what time period, then take a look at these diagrams, which again will be made available after our presentation is done today. So how do you best prepare for this review? I guess before I get into this section, I'll open it up for any questions. I don't think I see anything in the chat. Does anyone have any questions so far? Going once. All right. If you do have questions, feel free to chime in or put them in the chat box. Try and keep this conversational. Don't want this to be too dry of a presentation. So how do you best prepare for your review? So anticipating those agenda package information before your site visit helps you kind of get yourself in the mindset that you will have to get this documentation together. Don't underestimate the amount of time it takes to get all those documents together. Sometimes it involves reaching out to other departments in your organization, getting financial documents, getting maintenance documents from the maintenance side of things, or if you have external vendors you need to reach out to get maintenance documentation. If you have other staff involved, getting their involvement, it takes a decent amount of time to get all that together. So don't underestimate it. Don't wait to the last second. Plan for this, and then you can take bite-sized chunks out of it in those days that you're given to upload all this documentation rather than doing it all at the end. Because even though I know a lot of you probably wear multiple hats and it takes you away from your normal job duties, which we understand. That's why I think it's best to probably just take it bite-sized chunks out of it, getting documents uploaded maybe for financial management this day, and then a couple of days you'll do everything for procurement. Makes it easier rather than seeing the whole list at once. Also, so like I just said, getting other staff involved, make sure you alert them that they're going to be needed as part of this review. Most usually we need information and staff participation from finance departments, HR departments, maintenance. So if there are other staff that are involved in your transportation program or your organization that will need to be a part of this review from those different departments, just make sure they're aware and that you got their buy-in on participating in the on-site visit if they're going to need to be present for answering questions. It's just an interview. Also, something that's best, you can identify one individual just for a point of contact for your reviewer to emailing with for any particular questions, or if you have any particular questions, makes the review go a lot easier as for on your end, ADOT's end, and the reviewer's end. Because we don't want to be confusing several emails from several different sources. So it's just easiest to have one point of contact, most usually the transit director, transit manager, someone who's involved in that transit program is the one that would be responsible for coordinating your response to the desk review documentation. So as I already said, just making sure you get those that input from other agencies as well, other departments in your agency, finance, HR, maintenance are the typical areas that I see, but also if you have a separate purchasing department, depending on the size of your organization, just make sure we get those involvement for any particular requirements that we're asking for as part of you'll see laid out in the field guide. So lead person's responsibilities, as we recommend, making sure that person who is identified as the lead point of contact are collecting and organizing all this information, maybe even looking it over to make sure that it's the most recent version. If you maybe have policies that go through revisions, making sure that that policy document or plan is the most recent and current version of that plan before uploading that to the FTP site. Best way to avoid any issues during your site visit. Identifying those personnel who need to participate and ensuring those personnel are available during the site visit. So kind of already went through some of this stuff. Best things that we can recommend to make your review go as smoothly as possible. If you're looking to get documents from other departments, it also may be best to establish internal deadlines to say, okay, can everyone from finance get me their documents by the 15th of the month? If theoretically you receive the notification on the 1st, they'll be due around the 30th. You can maybe ask for that documentation by the 15th. So just setting internal deadlines so you can get that documentation, look it over, and then upload that to our FTP site within that timeframe that we're requesting. So particular federal changes in the past few years that we want to point out. These first two changes because we want to make sure you're aware of these changes because they are sometimes surprises or sometimes come up as common errors in, say, procurement. This first area are FTA contract clauses. If your agency is purchasing items, goods or services with ADOT FTA funds passed through by ADOT, these are requirements, and these are obviously, you might be aware, then FTA contract clauses are required to be included as part of that. One newer clause in the list of contract clauses to be included is this one listed under the Super Circular 2 CFR 200. It's just restrictions on purchasing certain telecommunications equipment, video surveillance services, or equipment from certain companies. You see it listed at the bottom, companies that are wholly or partly owned by the government of China right now. This is all laid out in the 2 CFR 200. So if you're curious to look into this further, highly recommend looking at this citation right here. That's just one new area that's come up in some reviews that we've seen. Other one is sort of similar origin from 2 CFR 2, not 200, but 183. Never contract with the enemy act is essentially just making sure that the companies that you are doing business with aren't also, doing things that are illegal with entities they shouldn't be doing business with. So that's why it's always important that you are checking the sam.gov website for any issues with a particular vendor to make sure that they are good to go before you are issuing any contracts or purchase orders with that company, especially as it relates to any purchases above $25,000, because that's where this sam.gov requirement kicks in, but it is still a best practice under that threshold as well. And then this one is sort of unique. Mainly has to deal with purchase of vehicles, which is ADOT really handles this a lot, for agencies in the state. So I won't really go over much of this, but it's really just using what we call innovative procurement tools. FTA wants to encourage that as opposed to buying single number of vehicles, because that usually, might mark up the price. It's about, establishing economies of scale for things like vehicle purchasing, which I believe ADOT already does for the state with the cooperative purchasing agreement. Next one, Build America, Buy America. This is if you're familiar with the BIL, the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law. This is something that was a requirement from there that increased and added new requirements to what was already established under Buy America. If you're familiar, that requirement's been in place for several decades now, requiring any item or good that's steel, iron, or a manufactured good that will be purchased with federal funds above a certain threshold, that there are certain requirements that good be made in America or made with domestic content that was made in America. This is now this particular regulation called BABA has been updated to include construction materials as part of that as well. So if your agency is using any funds from ADOT to build things, then build facilities, usually that's where this requirement comes in. Usually in the states that we work with, 50/10 agencies are rarely using funds for construction projects. It is possible, but it is as a rarity. So something that I imagine won't be really impacting your agencies much, but it is something to be aware, maybe if you receive federal funds from other sources for construction. All right, the site visit. What's it look like when we're going to be there? So setting up our location is important. We have your address right now for the agencies that have been identified for review this year. But if you have maybe other locations, as I said before, branches or satellite offices that maybe work better for a conference setting, or maybe you have better technology in those locations, please let us know. It's about establishing the logistics before we're on site. Conference room bed settings are best. As I said before, internet access will be something that we need so we can allow ADOT and our second reviewer to participate virtually. ADOT participating virtually or in person, that's up to their schedules. nearby electric connections are appreciated as well. So if you have outlets that maybe are far away from the table or hard to get to, if you have power strips or power cords available, we would appreciate that as well, because our computers can only last so long without being plugged in. So this is a whole day affair. So just make sure that we can plug in throughout this process as well. We would very much appreciate that. So the format, as I said before, is mostly going to consist of this informal question and answer. We're looking at your responses in the field guide and documents that you've provided, made our own notes, and we'll be looking at that to guide our discussion while on site, and maybe filling in those gaps on what other documentation or other information is needed to make sure that you're fully meeting all the various federal requirements from a compliance perspective. Also involved will be the inspection of records. So we'll be looking at a sample of usually financial and maintenance records. If your agency does receive funding from ADOT, the 5210 program, for purchasing anything, maybe certain equipment, shop equipment, computers, usually are some things that agencies are going out to purchase. They'll be looking at your procurement records as well, just to make sure that all the various procurement requirements have been met as well. This is something that your reviewer will be identifying as part of that agenda package, those emails that you'll receive from your lead reviewer before you're on site. The reviewer will take a look at your vehicle fleet roster and identifying usually up to 3, depending on the size of your agency, vehicles that we'll be looking at the maintenance records for. So for instance, if you maybe have a vehicle fleet of 12 vehicles, most likely your reviewer is going to ask for at least 3 of those vehicles for those maintenance records for the previous 12 months. So that's from the time that you receive that email. 12 months from then is what we're going to be looking for to determine if you are making sure that preventive maintenance activity, things like oil changes, is usually the baseline used for this analysis, to make sure that is occurring on time in accordance with your vehicle maintenance plan. So if you say that you conduct, say, oil changes once every 5,000 miles, we're going to be looking at the maintenance records for those sampled vehicles, just to make sure that that is indeed happening within 500 or 5,000 miles, within a certain tolerance as well, that your reviewer will explain as well on site. Other financial records, especially if you receive any operating assistance from ADOT, we'll be looking at making sure you're tracking all your financial records properly, revenues, expenses that are being charged to your ADOT grant. We'll just be making sure that that looks good and is copacetic. And I've already explained, we're looking at procurement records if you are using any 5310 funds to purchase any goods or services with the FTA funds. And then lastly, inspection of vehicles and facilities. Your reviewer is going to be looking at the vehicles, just making sure that they're, in good shape, that they're not falling apart, that they have certain notices posted, usually looking for a Title VI notice, looking for things like the fire extinguisher, making sure it's current, looking at other safety equipment on board the vehicle, such as bloodborne pathogen kits as well, making sure that the vehicle has securement straps and that are looking like it are in good shape. A key thing that I do see a lot that I'll give you as a little pointer. Your viewer is going to be looking at, I always see those vehicles and see if the securements are still on the floor or not. That's one thing we don't want to see, is that we don't want to see the securements for wheelchair securements in the floor. We want to make sure, those are taken out after the mobility device, is disembarked from the vehicle, because those can be tripping hazards. So just one little example of there is just to make sure, take those out of the floor as one thing that I like to look for, and I'm sure your reviewer will be looking for as well. All right, and how to have a successful review. Oh, I see we have a question.
Yeah, I had a question. So our headquarters is in Mesa, but our ADOT vehicles are in Yuma and Lake Havasu, and you were talking about doing inspection on the vehicles. How does that play off? Do we have to travel to those cities where we have the vehicles and have the audit there in that city?
That's a good question because I believe those two places are pretty far from Mesa, right? That's a good question. I think most likely it's either going to be we'll ask you to bring one vehicle in to the Mesa office, or it might need to take place the whole review out in one of those two locations. So that's something I probably need to be conferred with ADOT before we arrive on site. So I think reaching out to your ADOT representative is probably the best way to get that addressed before we move any forward with your particular review.
Okay, I'll make sure to reach out. Thank you.
Thank you. And then we see another hand raised. Steve, do you have a question?
Mine was a similar one. We're in 7 regions, so we're literally all over the state. And we do have, I think, 5 or 6 vehicles in the PAG region, which is where you guys will be coming for our administrative offices. That's where we'll be doing the review. I was going to ask if do you want us to bring vehicles over to the admin offices, or will we travel over to our site? It's only 3 miles away. Or do we bring them in from other parts of the state, and how much lead time do we have to do that? Because that's quite the venture.
Yep, that's a very good question too. I think probably best if you maybe could identify in your documents that you provide to your reviewer, or maybe send an email that when the reviewer is looking at certain vehicles to inspect while on site, just identify the ones that are closest. Those are the ones that are at your admin office or in the near vicinity that can be easily brought in, rather than going out to the other side, clear other side of the state, just to look at the vehicles. Your reviewer is actually likely just going to look at the vehicle's maintenance records for a random selection of vehicles, but they'll look at whatever vehicles available on site. So it doesn't need to be a one-to-one matchup. They'll just make sure that they can see at least 1 or 2 vehicles while on site as a example, just to see that, okay, the vehicle's looking good. So no, we're not asking you to bring in vehicles from clear across the state, hopefully to avoid any deadhead miles, because that would be a lot. So yeah, just make sure your reviewer has all that information in your desk review documentation and or email responses. I think would be the easiest way to clear that up.
Great, thank you.
No, thank you. All right, so this brings us to our final area, how to have a successful review. So this is just some pointers that we have out to provide. I think I've already given some of them, so I might repeat myself a little bit, but some things that we have just as some advice. First off is really just a reiteration of we're not there to have any sort of gotcha review, where we don't want this to be adversarial. We want this to be cooperative, to make sure that you are doing everything that you need to do for compliance, but also with the understanding that there are things that usually need some sort of corrective action. You can't be responsible or expected to have every single thing, even though that is FTA's hope. It is most of the time not what we see on site, but we are here to help get you to that level for 100% compliance. As I said, compliance is complex. So it's not our intention to find certain issues. Non-compliance is not something that we see as intentional. So we're here to just walk you through that, all these various compliance processes and requirements, just make sure that we bring you up to speed and up to compliance with all these various federal and state requirements. So when filling out that field guide and step 2, please do not hesitate to reach out to your reviewer. If you have any particular questions on seeing maybe the way something's phrased, or you don't understand what documentation that a certain question is asking for, or it's asking to be uploaded as part of our FTP site upload, please feel free to reach out to your reviewer. You will be getting contact information with your notification. That will either be from our program manager for compliance and ADOT, either that person, or it'll be the person who will be conducting your review. Either way, you're going to get in contact with who you need to get in contact with. any additional documents. So during the QA process, the reviewer may ask for additional documents if they see that you maybe are talking about a certain aspect of your program, then maybe ask for, actually, I would like to really see this particular pre-trip inspection form, for example, as part of your maintenance practice. If it's something that you do in addition to your regular pre-trip inspection, you'll say, oh, we would love to see that. Can you please provide that to us? So if you can provide those as efficiently as possible, that makes our lives easier. But you can always upload things to the FTP site and or email them to the reviewer as you can as well. Because we know this is we're on only there one day. You might be able to provide something the next day if someone's maybe out of the office. So just make note of that, and your reviewer will probably note that in the exit conference notes, just so we make sure we don't forget any documents that are requested as follow-up. In that exit conference, before we leave on site, ask questions on what will be required to address a corrective action. That exit conference those notes will, again, as I said, only list like what the issue was that was seen on site. It won't list the particular corrective action yet, but your reviewer is most likely going to know what's needed to correct that. So you can ask, well, hey, what's going to be needed to correct this? And then your reviewer can probably give you the information, or maybe even templates to develop the policy or procedure or practice to get that into full compliance. And then, as always, technical assistance is going to be available during this whole process. So always feel free to reach out for any assistance that you want may need. Templates are available from our office. We have a number of procurement templates, policy templates for financial management. So always feel free to reach out to us if you want to see anything in particular. Optional but helpful tasks are also, your reviewers loves to usually eat local. Something I always ask for is what's the good place to eat around town. So we love restaurant recommendations. Usually the hotels are booked ahead of time, but if you do won't have any particular recommendations when you receive your notification, feel free to send us recommendations. We love to stay local as well. And then something that helps out your reviewer a lot, if that you do have a conference room setting or maybe a desk area that your reviewer can look through maintenance records. If you have paper records that we'll look through on site, or procurement records that are in paper form as well, you can just give us a space. That would be very much appreciated, just to look through all that, so we're not looking at it on our laps while juggling a laptop and other things like that. That is everything I have, and that brings us to the end of our presentation. So again, I am Tyler Bender. Here's my contact information, my cell phone and email at the very bottom. Feel free to reach out to me if you have any questions, or your ADOT representative, or even your lead reviewer if you've already received your notification and it's not myself. So please feel free to reach out to them as well. I will now open it up to any more questions before we end our session today.
Hi, Tyler. I just wanted to thank you, first of all, for providing this overview of the review process. I know you're a seasoned reviewer with a lot of experience in 5310, 5311 systems, and you've done a lot of reviews in Arizona. I wanted to introduce myself to everyone. My name is Michelle Perales. You all have been receiving a lot of notifications from me, so I just wanted to personally chime in and say hello. And I just wanted to go through the upcoming 5310 review schedule, because I know there's been some changes. And just to give everyone an overview, we've got City of Tucson coming up November the 6th. We've got Hope coming up November the 7th. We've got Rise coming up November the 19th. New Horizons, November the 20th. And then we're about to send the notification packet to Santa Cruz Training for December the 11th and Project Amor for December the 12th. Those will be coming up. So I just wanted to give you all a preview of what's coming up. And for the first 4 systems that I mentioned, you should have already received the notification letter, the agenda package, the FTP upload instructions, and this PowerPoint that Tyler put together. And you'll be receiving this updated PowerPoint again with a lot of the new federal changes that he outlined in some of the slides. So we'll be providing that. And until we assign your lead reviewer, I'm going to be working with you on the logistics, because as Tyler mentioned, we will have a second reviewer who will be virtual. So we'll need to make sure that we have a setup in place for that reviewer to chime into the meeting, and that's not using the laptop of the lead reviewer who'll be there in person taking notes. So I'll be working with you to make sure that all of that is set up and in place for those reviews. And again, if you have any questions, and I did take notes of the folks that said that they might have vehicles in other towns. So I'll be coordinating with you to make sure that we actually have the review site in the appropriate location so that those vehicles can be inspected. And you'll be put into contact with your lead reviewer as soon as those folks are assigned from RLS. And again, in the meantime, if you have any questions or any needs, you can reach out to Tyler, you can reach out to me, and my information's on the notification letters that you received. You can reach out to ADOT, and we're in close contact with Jesse Zaragoza and the team there. And we're all here to help you. We're all here to make this process as friendly and helpful and convenient as possible. And so again, thank you all. Are there any questions?
And Jessica looks like she dropped a question in the chat, and just to make answer, yes, this is my colleague at RLS. So this is Michelle Perales. She'll be assisting as part of the review. So she is one of our compliance team members at RLS. All right. Thank you so much, Michelle. I'm sorry I didn't get you in earlier to give you a more formal introduction as well. I'll reach back out to anyone from ADOT. Jesse, any closing remarks before we end our session today?
This is Aubrey Perry. I don't know if my camera is really working, but I did want to tell the subrecipients, I think the way that you guys explained it was great. This is just an opportunity to kind of highlight the areas that maybe you need to improve on. And everybody has that. And the other thing I was going to also, Elaine, and Steve, I was going to note that as well for the vehicles, and I think Michelle even highlighted it, where we're going to have it, the site visit at is where the vehicle is. We're going to need at least one vehicle. It has to be there. It has to be where the site visit is going to be located. So we'll be reaching out. I noted you guys mentioned that concern, because I know you might, Elaine, I believe you said you have vehicles that are a little bit further out. So that was correct. Okay. So we'll reach out to you. Should be able to have better guidance for you on that. But I did note that. So we'll get a response to you soon.
Thank you, Aubrey.
Yeah,
Yes, the closest would be Yuma.
Okay. Yuma? Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for that.
No problem.
I'll delete my email. I had it ready to send.
I was just gonna send you an email too. So I was gonna send you and Steve, but I just want to at least say it so you guys could hear it from me.
Well, thank you. Deleted my email. Wait. Well, have a great weekend. Thank you so much for this. Actually makes it a little bit easier for us and release a little bit more stress than we had. But thank you so much.
Yes, no, thank you. And please don't lose any sleep over this. Don't feel too stressed. It's not going to be too bad. Trust me. I was just on a review in Oregon, and a person said that they were losing sleep before our site visit. And then after we were all done, she said, well, I didn't have anything to really worry about. So please do not be too stressed about this. We will try to make this as easy as possible. All right. So good to hear from you again, Aubrey. I remember I worked with you before when I was out at Winslow and Sherlock.
Yes, it's great to see you, Tyler. I know, sorry, my camera is like not wanting to work on my laptop right now, but it's great to thank you. I think you gave a lot of great information. Thank you, Michelle, as well, for great information. I, again, just want to let the subrecipients know, don't be nervous. Don't be nervous. You guys are already doing it. You guys already have the documentation. It's there. You just have to gather it together. You have it. So I just at least wanted to highlight that and make one thing. And then you guys everybody have a wonderful weekend. Thank you again, Tyler, for your presentation, Michelle as well. Thank you guys. You guys are amazing. So thank you guys.
No, thank you. And that brings us to our end. So, yep, everyone have a great weekend. Thank you so much for attending.
You too.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Guys.
Have a good one.
Bye.
Thank you.